I don't see myself as one of those cases that are very good in that areas. And as an expert, definitely not on that. I think I've got a lot of mistakes and a lot to learn. So, but I'll give you my best, and I believe the biggest thing I can do is just speak from the heart, and what I've learned, and hopefully there's something in there.
Mate, well, if your heart's anything to go by, Johan, it's got to fill the room, mate. That's for sure. Okay, mate. Well, the first question that I ask, and I love asking this, is just how do you define culture, and what are the key elements you believe that a thriving culture needs?
Yeah, that is a tough one, and I'll tell you why. Because obviously, culture for each person is going to be something quite different. And although we see culture as the environment, that's probably the biggest thing. Is if you walk into a company and you walk into a school and you say, "What's the culture?" and then they say, "Well, some attach it to history, some attach it to, to whatever the badges stand for, and it's been there for 100 years and etc." But for me, culture is almost the value of a system, and because each unique team and each unique company, the first thing you see when you walk into a lot of big companies, or into a change room, is the values that they've put out there, and that must drive your culture. So ultimately, what values you're going to decide as a team or as a leader, that's going to drive your culture, I believe. So if and all the teams I got involved in, as from a coaching point of view, specifically as a head coach, Rob, that was probably one of the first things I tried to establish is what culture do we want to have, and in brackets, what values do we want to have. And I like that to be not driven by me as the head coach, or and say to the team, we're going to have honesty, we're going to have trust, we're going to have respect, we're going to have, I want that to come ultimately from the players. We can have our inputs, we can have, from a coaching point of view and from a medical point of view, we can have, contribute to that. So it's a collective thing. I've always taken every team to a camp. That's probably the first thing I look for, is the opportunity to take them away on a camp. And then
what's the theory behind the camp, Johan?
Camp there's two things. It's one, to connect off the field and to learn each other as quickly as we can. So you will have like a question. We call it story time, kind of introduction, where each guy gets the opportunity to stand up and tell a bit more about himself, about family, about hobbies, about anything you're interested, anything that we don't know about you. Apart from, everybody knows when a player walks in, we know that he played for what school he played. We know for what, in South Africa, what did he play for the Bulls Craven Week? Did he play? So that everybody knows, but nobody knows, that he likes cars, or he likes fishing, or he likes hunting, or he likes snowboarding, or whatever, and nobody knows if he's, about. So, and then, so the biggest part of the camp is connections, to know each other, to break down that original boundaries, because I feel that if you kick off with training, obviously you'll have a week training before you can organize the camp. But if you just train, go into games, the time that we speak to each other is only in the change room, showering, get in the car, go back home. In the gym, maybe a small chat, go back. And then I only connect with the one or two players that the locks. I only gym with the locks. I only talk to the odd prop, but I don't ever talk to the fullback or the wing or whatever.
So just the people who your shoulders are touching in the scrum. Yes, that's all you talk to.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it. And I feel on a camp, when the players stand up and they hear there's a connection. I also like music. I also like movies. I also like X, Y, and Z. And suddenly, those are the guys that start talking with each other every time. The moment that we break up that little huddle, you can see how the guys interact with each other. There's almost a more openness, because suddenly that guy, he's not shy to say, my parents are divorced, my father has passed away, I'm our only child, I grew up in an orphanage home. So everybody respect that person already, what he's gone through. And there's a bit of connection there, some people are obviously not comfortable in speaking in front of other people. So you don't force it, but you want him to say something, even if it's something small about himself. Some guys are very open about if they went through a tough time. If a guy has gone through whatever situation, and that is obviously up to the individual. So that's the one part. The second part is then we put time aside to ask the players, how do people, if they walk into this rugby team, what kind of culture do they want to experience? How do they perceive us? Are we humble people? Are we grateful people? Are we respectful people? And then that must come from them. So that's the values that I spoke earlier about, that they must decide. And in the beginning, you maybe in your first session there will be 10 values, but it's not practical to live 10 values and to define 10 values, and then we will, there's a process. Even if in my first year at the Lions, we actually brought a specialist team, psychologist team that helped us with putting that process in place. Of course, we came back out of Super Rugby. We were kicked out of Super Rugby. We came back in with a new group, new players, and we established that values through a question and answer method, and also through a voting method. And ultimately, we ended up with 5 values. But the values wasn't just a word on on paper. The values had to be described underneath. How do you live respect? How do you live trust? Trust is when you get told you're not selected. Are you walking out and go talk behind the coach's back when you disagree? When you're not agreeing with the game plan, are you telling the players you're not agreeing, or is there trust that you stand up in a team meeting and say that? Because that filters over to respect, Are you trusting the game plan for this weekend, or are you walking out and say that's not going to work? So it was literally described through everything. Respect on greeting. Look at the guy in the eye, shake his hand, greet him, respond. When I send you a message, hey Ben, do you understand this play? Don't ignore that. Respond by that. Say yes, I understand it. And ultimately, it was simple values, but it was practically, and the players then started to driven that, and especially our leaders, our guys that were comfortable in speaking up, and then obviously led by example on the field. So they were the guys working hard. They were the guys obviously leading through their actions on the field. And then it became quite easy because the young boys just followed, and I must be honest, what the effect was brilliant, because it's always tough to tell a player that is not selected. It's never nice to hear that from a player's point of view. But you always felt that the players backed the decision. They believed why you picked out that player, for what skill set he's got, why you're going to use him, and they were willing to wait for the opportunity. And then when we get visitors, Ben, let's say somebody from the sponsors or somebody that wanted to come and observe training, I can't believe you how many people came to me afterwards and say it's unbelievable how every player walked past him and come and greet him and look him in the eye and make me felt welcome. So for me, that is the culture, driven by your values, and then your players living your values, not just a word on the wall. You have to define it. You have to make it practically. I'd rather have only 2 values and make it fully practical and applicable than having 6 values up there, but nobody's living it. Nobody is accountable. If you're accountable as one of your values, but nobody wants to stand up on Monday morning and say, that's my tackle, I missed, what's the purpose of having accountability on as a value?
Mate, I love it, and I love that phrase you said. You got the boys or the players to vote for the values. Is that
Yeah,
something
yeah,
which
yeah.
you always so you'll sort of like you'll pin out sort of 10 or so that you think are appropriate, and then you'll ask the players, like democracy really, boys, tell me
Yeah.
which ones you want to instill in this culture, like, and you drive it. You drive what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's what you do in pretty much all environments you roll into.
Yeah, yeah, and then quite an interesting thing we did. I never did it in the other the D-Rocks or at Gloucester, but at the Lions we eventually ended up with a mantra of
Yep.
who are we as the Lions, and we said to ourselves that we are a team that thrive under pressure. We never will give up. I if the opposition will always get the best version of us, and we believe that the harder the pressure, the more we will respond. It was a 5-sentence little mantra, and the players had it on a little card with them that they carried. And on a Monday morning, um, uh, one player will just stand up in front and he will just say it by heart, you know. And then the
Really?
next Monday morning, somebody else will. It wasn't compulsory. We gave a 1 minute window to say, is there anybody that want to say anything? Some players will stand up and tell a story about how grateful they are that they wiped an accident, but they were not serious injured, you know. That's part of
Mm.
our values of being grateful. And then one will stand up. We try to drive really the value of being grateful of what you've got, and then we'll say, no, one guy will stand up and say, no, he was fortunate that his father was sick, and then one will stand up and say the mantra, and then it became quite a habit. Every Monday somebody will say that, and then it becomes almost a belief that this is the team you're going to be. You know, this team that thrive under pressure, a team that is willing to make it tough for the opponents. And that's what I wanted to say. So I think it's quite powerful if your culture is something that you can live and almost revisit to see, are we living it practically? Because otherwise it's just a word on the wall, and just
Mm.
a nice words. And that's the reason why I want to mention that too is the part that you said now of the voting is we made it quite clear. In the beginning, everybody has the opportunity to just throw what is important for them, but then what stands out for you? What do you think you can live to, and what can you? And then they started to vote, and ultimately it was a good tool for me. And I'll tell you
Mm.
why, because sometimes it does influence selection. Sometimes the player doesn't show the character that you want because you can see he's not training at his best because he just heard he's not selected. Well, then, again, does he got respect? Because one of the things that we said in respect is to make sure that you respect the player that is selected and prepare him and well. So the other thing it makes also help me from a selection point of view is if we're going to be accountable and the guy misses his detail or he's not working as hard as he can on whatever facet of the game, then when he walks in the office, I can just say to him, listen, are you honest with yourself? Are you living the values of
Mm.
how we said we want to do, And then if he's open with himself and he looked at his game, he will say, no, I wasn't. And so, and then obviously there is the skill stuff that you can point out if he missed tackles or haven't performed as well as you can. But it does give you quite a thing without making him feel bad. It still helps you to say, listen, this is a part of our values. This is what we want to establish as a team. And at the moment, you just a little bit off on this in this area, and that helps. So yeah, so I mean, for me to come back to your view is that that's the first thing I try to always do is get off the field action going through a camp, try to connect, establish that values, and then something that I'm quite big on is to ask the players of who you are and why you're doing it.
Love it.
You know, if you haven't got those two things, who are you and why are you doing this? For me, that's a problem, because ultimately that will drive you as an individual, and that will make sure that you live our values. Because if I have to motivate you daily, if I have to give you this massive and then give a Sunday team talk on every
Yeah.
match day, you know,
Yeah.
then
If Grumpy Johan has to come out every day,
every time, you know,
the culture
that
shot.
can't be nice. It can't be nice, and it can't be why you're doing it. You know, I don't care if you do it for your family, if you do it for yourself, if you do it for money, if you do it for your father that passed away, if you do it for your wife, whatever. But you have to have a why. And
Yeah.
who are you? Because that who are you is so important, because you're gonna get judged by people. You know, you're gonna get your highs, your lows. You're gonna be selected, not selected. That's when your character is gonna be tested of who you are. And you know, are you then a guy that can live that values? So who are you when the door closed and you look yourself in the mirror? You know, and that two things I'm quite hard at as a coach. You know, because for me, if you get out of bed and you have to expect a hard training and you don't know why you're doing it, then it can't be enjoyable. How do you
No,
train? How do you train if
no.
you don't know why you're doing it? Then rather stay in the bed, or rather go work for Mercedes or for Kentucky Fried Chicken, or you know, go do something.
Mate, I think Mercedes would be better than Kentucky Fried, just as a general rule.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to know why you're doing it. You know, I say to them is writing your own movie. You know, you're the director of the movie.
Yeah,
And you must have a movie to direct. Otherwise, where do you go?
that's right, mate. And mate, to be honest, around that phrase, like the director of the movie, I kind of see you in your teams that you're the first director, you're the executive director. But mate, like just some of the stuff that stuck out for me there, that phrase off the field action, like that's a really cool phrase. And the other
Yeah.
aspect you were talking about was like you're almost referring to like the compounding effects when players live the values. And you mentioned about how the sponsor was so enthralled and in love with the team because the player shook his hand, looked him in the eye, all that things. And I think for me that's the feedback from whether your culture's growing strong is whether, you know, the byproducts are your fans and your sponsors love the team, they love you. And to be honest, mate, like I think you do that really well in everywhere you've been. Like when you left the Lions, I remember a quote from the reporter was, "I feel sorry for the coach that has to replace you." And I know Big Jim Hamilton said, "I am gutted he's leaving when you left Gloucester." So what you do, mate, I feel like you're the chief director in the cultures that you're in, and everyone that seems to be part of your team seems to really enjoy themselves in your environments. Is enjoyment something that's big for you? Because a quote here that you said about Gloucester is, and I believe it's every team, is you said it's about people. And that was one of your first quotes when you did an interview with the Gloucester Press. And I really, if that's one of the first things you're saying, I think it's really representative of you as a coach. And is it about people? Is it about having fun and making memories and enjoying things first?
Yeah.
Is that a big part of your philosophy?
Definitely, Ben. Yeah, I think yes. There's a lot of things that go through my mind when you said that, because obviously for me, I always loved people, and I cared for people as a person. So for me, you know, we were speaking about culture, but also probably about why I said those things in the media is, for me, to come back to that why is, the players must understand when they play for a team, or specifically the team that one is involved in, they've got opportunity to interact with people. They've got opportunity to make a difference in people's life. Um, and that is why it's important to me, because I've made the mistake. as a player, where you get the opportunity to go to function because the team has got the function, and then you go and you stand in the corner and you're grumpy because you don't want to be there. You're tired. You've just had a hard training. You just want to get back home.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is you're so short-sighted that you don't realize that in 5 or 10 years from now your career is finished, and the first guy that you could have been had a connection with is that guy who's standing in that room, who's in business. And if you were just willing to be friendly, to greet, to talk to him, to shake his hand, to build up a relationship, he's the one guy that can open a door for you and can look after you. And you can never underestimate who it is in life. It can be anybody. It can be, and that's the lesson I've learned and that I regret as a player, where you didn't interact every time with people like you should have. And that's what I try to teach the players now, is to say, every time you put on the jersey, you get a time to make a difference in a supporter's life. Every time you walk off the field and you walk past somebody or you walk into a building, you get the opportunity to interact and to make a difference. If it's the lady that cleans the foyer or the CEO that sits at the back of his big desk, it doesn't matter. It's how do you treat that people and how do you interact with them, because that's the people that makes a difference in your organization. Nobody asks the kit manager to make up the change room, but he does it because he loves it and he helps you as a player. And I think that is why it is about people. But saying that is, as a team, I like the players to have fun. I like them to interact with each other. Again, a part of the camp is to have a barbecue, to stand and have a beer together, to have fun with each other, to laugh, to play games together. To organize. I like to surprise the players, especially in pre-season times where we work train hard, and when they come off the field, there's a few cooler boxes with beers and cold drink and a bit of meat on the braai, and they, and stuff like that. Actual fact, you won't believe it now what I'm going to tell you now, Rob. But the quarterfinals of 2016, I think we actually didn't train on the Monday. We just had a big party on the Monday, So the players obviously expected a massive training because it's playoff week, and then I walked into the meeting room, and then we had cooler boxes packed out for them with snacks and beers and cold drink and everything, So
mate, no wonder you're leaving such a popular character from every club you go down, mate. It's because you bring on beers on a Monday at lunchtime.
I was struggling with Japan. They didn't want to allow me.
Well, mate, I heard another one. I think about the quarterfinal too. One of your coaches said this. That same year we played cricket on the pitch before a game, and a game of red ass for activation, which sounds hilarious before a game.
That was also a big thing. Every captains and stuff. I like to banter with the players, make jokes, and just give it when we're on the field, we work hard like any team, I believe, but off the field and sometimes even on the field, there is a time for humor and laughter and the one thing I always said to myself when I came into coaching is that, if I walk away from an organization or a place, I want people to say, I've always been treated well by him, and it was a fun environment to be in. It was a nice environment. I had the opportunity to be myself, and I think so. Ultimately, I heard this from Laurie Maines when he was my coach. He said, I asked him one day, I said, what's the toughest thing from a coaching point of view, and he said the toughest thing for a coach is to create the environment for a player to perform. And if you can get that right, then you're on the right track. So that was always my aim. It stuck with me as a player. I still played for 5-6 years, but it always stuck with me to say, and I never knew I'm going to be a coach. The coaching thing, that's maybe a story for the other day, how I became a coach. But the moment I became a coach, I remember that verse is, create an environment to be able to perform in. That is the challenge.
That's fascinating too, and you certainly prefer Laurie was a good one for that. I have some stories about him myself because I was coached by him as well. But like creating that environment, that's the real art of coaching, isn't it? And environment's really just another definition of culture, isn't it? It's the same sort of thing. But certainly, mate, you leave a lot of you have a lot of cheerleaders everywhere you go around the culture that you create, which is super cool, mate. But I guess one of the questions which is interesting now around the environment that you create, you've had some really unique experiences coming from South Africa to the UK to then Japan. And I want to, like there's 3 very distinct cultures there, but even more so when you got to Japan, you joined a team which then merged with another team to create the D-Rocks. And those 2 teams were rivals of the same company. And so not only have you got to merge a team, but you've got to merge a team in a foreign language with a whole different set of cultural norms and expectations. How did you even begin to start where to merge those two teams culturally and environment wise?
Yeah, yes, Ben, that was a big challenge. Obviously, because like you said, it wasn't just 2 teams that had a rugby history, but it was the fact that it was 2 different companies that were actually, even though they were probably run by the same company, they were still very big enemies in the company itself. So, and then the fact that when we walked in there, that August of 2022, the Shining Ox was still branded in Shining Ox. Everything was still branded in the old team.
Oh, they were still wearing the old kit.
Yeah, old kit and everything. So our first training, the players were mixed and matched with kit, and so that made it even different. It's fine if you create a new team, but you walk into a facility that is branded into the new name, and you'll get your new kit. It will immediately give you some form of identity, But it wasn't this case. Obviously, this decision was made so quickly that they didn't have time to rebrand the facility and the building and the kit and everything. So I was just honored, to be fair. I was just honest that we are in a tough situation. I believe that there's no soft way to say this. I said to them, maybe none of you wanted this. Maybe none of you I like this idea. The fact that you've been selected means you've been appointed as, let's say, half of the group from Osaka, half of the group. That's the first thing that shows there's something in you. The second thing is we can't change the past. We can only control the future and what we can control. And that is for us to become a team. And the only way we can become a team is if we have that. And then this whole the whole process we actually discussed now, kicked off. We must establish values. We must establish the culture. What are we going to stand for as a team? How are we going to drive this team? I shared with him my philosophy that, I'm a coach that loves fun, but when we're on the field, we're going to work hard. We're gonna obviously train well and try and train at intensity. And then we did actually, I think, 3 or 4 camps that first year. So we did a lot of the earlier stuff we spoke about. Had good fun off the field to connect and also establish that values. And that values is up on the wall, and that values has been, we redefined it a little bit in the second year because it was much easier. Because when we came back in year 2, that last year now in 23 over to 24, when we came back, it just felt different. Everybody were handshaking, high-fiving, hugging each other. We all in the same clothes. That it's 12 months later, but it's a total different environment. There's a culture. There's a belief. There was obviously disappointment when we lost that promotion relegation, but it was the best thing that could have happened with us because the team, in my view, wasn't ready. Yes, we won, but our first test was the promotion relegation to experience pressure, and it was the first game that we also were behind halftime. Obviously in the second division we were not tested, so So we had to experience that as a team. That was the box that we lacked. Testing our culture, testing our mental strength. And once we experienced that, when we've lost the promotion, I told the guys that we will win the following year. I just knew it. But we needed to go through that experience of having a tough a day that things doesn't work for you. Because we could have turned the whole building the team in that first year, even though you talk about mental toughness and you try to put them in that scenarios, but on Saturday, they run 30 points in the first half, and then they take their foot off the gas.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, Ben, it's going to be hard, but you don't experience hard times, you know. And so that was my biggest concern. I said to the coaches the whole time, that's the one thing I'm worried is that Kentetsu plays at a high intensity. Yes, they maybe don't win every game, but they play at a high intensity and they understand what pressure is. And we've got good players that can beat them, but do we understand what a 1-point game is or a 2-point game is? And that obviously came through. But then we fixed it. To be fair, the players matured from that. They learned from that lessons, and the good thing is we played Contexio again, and then we could have almost had that experience in the back of our minds, and the players were much more composed. So to come, there's so much into that question, but to come back to that, it was tough. I won't lie to you, because even under the staff members, the marketing guys were mixed. They were fighting with each other the first 6 months. The unbelievable fights. Okay. The medical staff were fighting with each other. My energy went in so much off the field stuff to get unity into that. For example, you had to challenge the players constantly on, if one of our values is respect, and under respect is team first. Why do you, when I select a team, why do you say I only select Docomo players? Why do that gossip is in the passages that I only select Docomo players? Why don't you come to me and ask why you're not selected? Is that not part of respect? So I had to challenge the players constantly on that culture. And then last year we didn't have it. I didn't have to worry about players who's not selected. They came straight to me and asked me the questions. There was no you only pick Docomo players and that's the stuff I had to break down. That the one thing I said to them, I can't guarantee you that anything in life. I'm not God. I can't guarantee anything in life. But what I can guarantee you is that I'll never not select you because of who you played for or what you are, or I'll be honest with you. So, so I try to be brutally honest about, I'm not going to be bind to the fact that I coached Docomo for 2 years. And now I see Docomo players first and then I see them. For me, the best player must wear the jersey, regardless of your background, your size, whoever you are. And I made that quite clear to them. And then I said to them, then it's in your hands, how your character is going to be shown, how you're going to treat training, how you're going to live out our values, and so on. But yeah, I must be honest with you, every camp that year, I could feel the players coming closer and closer and closer together. And ultimately, I think we were a good enough team, culturally wise, to win the promotion guys, but practically we just were not ready. And we had to go through that, and that's why the year 2 was much better.
Yeah, mate, it is a fascinating place, isn't it? And it's like a little experiment particularly for foreign coaches to come and try piece all the puzzle pieces together without that, that knowledge of the history and the education that's gone deep underneath, right?
And also the challenging thing in Japan is you have to work through the translator.
Yes.
And you will know now better than anything that the translator told me, when he translates, there's so many words you can use that sometimes you lose probably a little bit of the punchline of what you want to say in some aspects, unless he gets it 100% the words you want to use. And also that one-on-one relationships, you know, it was much stronger in Gloucester and in the Lions, and I'm not, you know, hiding around it, that when you call in a Japanese player to speak to him a bit more one-on-one, you know, it still goes through the translator. There's still a moment that you lose eye contact because he's looking at the translator and you're looking at the translator. And that was the tough part, because, you know, to win somebody's confidence, I feel you have to, you know, have that one-on-one relationship. And that's why that's the tough thing, to get that trust from the Japanese players, even though you're not alone with him in a room. You're always with somebody in the room. And that was the part that I really tried to say to them, please come, let's be open with each other, talk to us. Obviously, you didn't get it right with everybody, but some eventually started to engage a bit more, even though it's through the translator. But there's still a lot of players that obviously you didn't have the relationship you wished you could have had.
Mate, it really is. Like, you have to work on every other side of your communication, don't you? Your body language, your symbols and your gestures, and and how you hold your face and things, like even like your sentiment, the way someone looks at you. You have to be better at not showing emotion as much, or not being vague with your symbols and your body language.
And then simple things, you're planning, you know, if your defense coach want to speak, your attack coach want to speak, then suddenly there's only like 5 minutes left for you as head coach. And what are you going to say in that 5 minutes, you know? So it makes you actually think about your message that you want to give, and to be accurate. And sometimes, do you really want to say something, or just want to say something for the sake of it? So the Japan really make you think about your meetings and how you structure your meetings.
Yeah, well, mate, when I first weighed up the option of going to Japan, a very close friend of mine who's a long-time coach said it is the best place to go in terms of having time to just grow the craft of coaching, because you have to use stuff which you never have to use in any other place. You have to go, because you can't talk, you have to take that off the table and coach without talking in a lot of ways. It's a lovely place to learn and grow, and it's a place where I recommend any aspiring coach goes to learn the art of coaching, really.
100%. And I mean, yes, sorry, let's go.
No, mate, I've got a couple of questions I'm really keen about you now, mate, because I just enjoy the way you are as a leader, and I want to just like get a lot of understanding of what makes you tick. And one of the big things about you is your strong Christian faith. And I'd love to know, with that side of things, because not all coaches have such a strong faith, how does it guide your coaching and your leadership style, and how does it set you up to handle things both good and bad in your coaching?
You see, Ben, I think through my faith, obviously it gives you a lot of peace, because we are, as much as we don't want to admit it, we are emotionally involved into the game. And if you lose, there is emotional things that, you know, you go through. And then we are also, you know, big part of that is when it comes to contract and contract renewal, etc. And there's this uncertainty, and that's why I think the biggest thing for me in my Christian faith is to give me peace about either through the results, you know, that there's a bigger picture than just the results, and also that if there's opportunity opening up, that, you know, that opportunity, there's purpose why it's opening up. It's maybe not in the place that you thought it's going to be. It's not at the team, but you know, part of your journey with God is to make a difference in people's life. So for me, it gives me purpose. It gives me a reason why I get up out of bed. It gives me a reason why I want to treat people with respect, and to you know, that's what it gives me. It gives me opportunity to invest in people's life, you know, and that's how, we all want to win, but ultimately, for me, my command, almost to call it, is to say, God, send me, and I will try and make difference in people's lives, and that is ultimately the peace that it gives me. That if we didn't win the promotion negation, it's hard, it's tough, but it doesn't define me of who I am as a person. Um, what defines me as a person is what does Ben say that played under me? What does Ben say as my assistant coach? How did he experience me in that year? What is his thoughts over me? Because ultimately, if I treated him badly, if I disrespected him, if he didn't enjoy his job, I failed as a coach. And for me, that is what my faith is that it's not about winning and losing for me. It's about God's purpose for my life, and part of that is I've got I felt the things that I went through as a player, and now I've got the opportunity. I've always asked God, why did I go on it? Why did that happen to me? And the moment I got the coaching job, it was clear to me, now it's time to invest back into people's life. And all that questions you had, you can answer that now through them. So yeah, so that is, why were I not selected after the Springbok test? And for 4 tests, never been told why. Why did I get injured? I always had this questions of why did this happen to me? Why? But now, for 14 years as a coach, I had players that gone through the same things, and they come and sit in my office and they ask those questions, and suddenly I can share with them and I can encourage them, and I've got empathy with them. I understand their situation, and that's why nothing happened without a reason. We in that situation, we sometimes have a lot of questions, but ultimately God's plan for your life is perfect. And we don't always see that. Only 2 years later, you say, "Oh shit, that's the reason why I didn't." That's the reason why I didn't go to that place. This is the reason why I went to this place and whatever. So it gives me a lot of peace, basically, Ben. And from an emotional point of view, results wise, I don't say I don't care about losing. Just I'm a bad loser. Okay, so I don't say. I don't say even if we played Uno game cards, I don't want to lose. But
Yeah,
anyhow,
you a card thrower, Johan, and you just like that. I'm out. I'm not playing anymore.
not that bad, but I get nasty. You cheat away, I get aggressive, but not that bad. But no, but I mean, I'm competitive. I've always been competitive, but ultimately, what I mean with it gives me peace is that you know we control everything, but ultimately, if certain things, unfortunately, if it doesn't happen, what is it? What's your reaction to that?
Yeah.
And if I have to treat people only when I feel good, well, and I have to feel good about myself only when the media writes well about me, or when social media then I'm never going to be happy. I'm never
Yeah.
going to be at peace. So I can only be at peace when I know what my purpose is, and that is, like I said, that God's got a plan for my life, and my biggest uh, in my view, is to obviously testify about His goodness, but also to treat people and to learn them the lessons that I've learned in my life.
Oh, mate. I think it's a wonderful way to ground yourself and just have that bigger perspective, because I think you need it. And I think a lot of coaches, certainly the professional area, you get swept away in the results and the scoreboard. And if you want to
Yeah,
lose trophies, and you can get in a swirl, which is very hard to get out. And sometimes it's harder to see that bigger perspective. And I think a lot of experienced coaches talk about the value of having a mentor. But obviously what you're saying is you've got the best mentor of all, the biggest, highest mentor
yeah,
that just
yeah.
keeps that bigger picture out. I think it's fascinating, mate, and it's a cool thing, and it's something which I think could be a new thing that becomes part of
No,
the spiritual side of coaching.
no,
Now,
definitely.
mate, with this as well, is it like just on your background? So you got that strong Christian faith, but you also had a little bit of upbringing with a little police police work before the game went professional. And I'm always intrigued about that sort of dynamic to leadership as well, because policing is a very sort of practical, it's very much like coaching. There's a big practical component to it, but there's also some real empathy and communication and reading situations. Did you pick up much from your work when you're working in police before the game went professional?
Yeah, I think, yes, see, I mean, I think I don't think I actually realize it, but when I think back to it, and I had to go to let's say a very good business leader, and we had to dissect this. I think the police probably grounded me and molded me as a coach, and almost, it's funny enough, a lot of the professional coaches, maybe especially my age stuff, were either teachers or policemen, you know. So I think the fact, if you had a background where you had some form of education, where you had to teach something or work in a team environment, and I think it really helps. So in my case, I was obviously in the police, and what you learn in the police is that you have to trust people around you, and you have to work with people around you. Otherwise, whatever situation you're going to come in is not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not about the size of the player. It's about just heart. It's about people working hard and working together. That's when you do your training in the police. That's when you do some assignment as a group of policemen together. You can seldomly do anything on your own. But what the police teach me is, that's why I've always had it, even as at school. I always had I don't know if it was because I was obviously a little bit bigger than everybody, but I always cared for people around me, and I wanted to protect people, and the police almost just nurtured that even more. So it really almost gave me a sense of, I want everybody around me to feel that they looked after and that they are valued. And I think, that, because then you get the best out of people when they feel valued and they feel that you trust them.
Yeah.
I let you. I'm not standing over you and tell you what to do the whole time. I let you do your thing, but ultimately I'm there to help you. I'm there to support you, and that's what the police is all about. When you've got your little piece of the puzzle to get through this, let's say, to this objective, but there's a captain, or there's a sergeant that's in control that you can go to. He is there to help you, but he does give you that trust that you can do the job. And ultimately, when I went, I became one of the instructors in the college, where the police guys come for their training, and that gave me the ability to learn how to take the module and to teach the module for the young students. So that probably helped me from becoming comfortable in talking up front. I'm not the best speaker. I'm not saying I'm a comfortable speaker, but I'm saying it. I think if I haven't that background, I would have struggled as a coach. Because it did give me some form of education in how to speak, how to prepare to speak, and what do you want to achieve after your 30 minutes? What's the outcome that you want to achieve? So it did help me. But I think the biggest thing that I can relate to rugby is that a team only works as well as the people that can trust in that system. So if you look at coaching, if I can't trust my assistant coaches, if I have to worry if they can do the job, or if I have to worry if they're going to talk about my back about something, then that you're walking on sinking sand, and I think it's the same when for the players' relationship with the coaches and the coaches to the players. It's all about trust, and that's probably the big thing that the police learn me is that you can only be successful if you trust people around you.
Yeah. Well, and the other one, mate, around the people around you, is like, you had a really interesting one as well, in that your son is a professional player at Gloucester still. And
Yeah.
I always find that dynamic interesting between your coach, like it's a very unusual situation where your son's part of the team which you're coaching at a professional level, and then you're going home and living together for a period of that time in the same roof. That's a very different dynamic to most father-son relationships and professional coach-player relationships. And how has your parenting journey and coaching journey become intertwined for you as a leader, as well as your police and your Christian faith aspect?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was great for me to be part of his rugby journey, because it gave me a hands-on. Early in his career, he came out of school to the Lions, and then, he started to play for us at Super Rugby level, and it gave me a hands-on to almost to invest and to develop into his playing career, So that was the big positive. The challenge for us was, how do we find that common ground between coaching him but not over-coaching him, in the sense that now it becomes a thing where we never have the father-son relationship. It's always just coaching.
Is it ever compromised? Like, do you ever have to pull yourself back because you're like, that's too much?
In the beginning, we had to unfortunately go through that first one or two headbutt moments, where it was too much, where he gets from training, and then we start talking about training, and so we actually made some boundaries and some ground rules of we're not going to talk about the rugby side once we're done at the Lions and we get back home. We're not going to talk about it unless he asks the question. I'm not going to be the one talking about it. I'm not going to call him and say, listen, today at training you did this, and this, and this. If he comes, if I don't do it at the arrangement was, if I don't do it at the stadium, because then I made it, in the beginning, obviously, here in South Africa, everybody said, yeah, he's getting picked because he's my son, etc., etc. And then eventually he started to perform really well, and it started to go away a bit. And then, at Gloucester we went together. There was still, again, one or two comments. Yeah, he's just gone there because of my son. And that's probably the biggest thing why I'm glad when I left that he stayed and he proved himself. It's just to almost nail that thing down and show, okay, he can do it on his own. But saying that, so I had to make it quite clear to him when he set his foot at the Lions that I can only evaluate him under the same umbrella, value system, under the same training selection policy. What must a back rower have that we go through with every player? I can't even have a half an inch, because the moment I pick him, there's just a 1% grade. I didn't pick Ben, I picked you. They're going to say it's because you're my son. So he actually had to prove himself more. I never told him that, but when we sat in coach's selection, it wasn't me that pushed for him to make his debut in Super Rugby. It was Swayze and JP, the assistant coaches. They said, you hard on him, he deserves his position and stuff. So we had to make that boundaries, that when are we going to talk about the game, and when are we just going to be father and son at home, and credit to him, he handled it well, and we dealt with it. We really make sure that when we off the field, we make sure that we talk to the people around us the same as we would have talked about with any other family commitment. Is it mine or is it your signal?
Oh no, we're back. We're back. Yeah,
we're back.
You're getting super passionate, Johan. So all the wiring starts fusing out.
I said no. So we made it quite clear, once we get out of the stadium, then we have to treat the people around us as a family environment, and not as a rugby environment where we talk rugby.
Yeah,
between him and myself the whole time.
Mate, it must be a really cool, because it's a very unique situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
It probably tests your bigger picture stuff as well, like the balance between, you want your son to do well, but then you also want to make sure there's no undue influence there. It's awesome.
I think to come back to your other question about our faith, I think that helps as well, because ultimately, I'm gonna love him as my son, regardless of his performance on the field. I have to treat him fair towards other players, but I'm gonna love him regardless of his performance. And what I mean is that, you know, if he's not selected, it doesn't change the fact that he's my son. I'm not gonna then suddenly treat him different and be upset with him and not talk to him because you're disappointing me, and it's not the rugby that makes me love him or the rugby that makes me be proud of him. It's the fact that he's my son, and that's not
Yeah.
going to change. So I think that helps him to understand that when I don't select him, or I do tell him, I think this area needs work on, it comes from a heart of a coach, but also as a fatherly advice. And it's up to you. If you're going to improve that area, then that obviously it's going to improve you as a player. And just because I'm your coach, it gives you a chance to be selected. But remember, you have to be better than the player that are currently selected. So that criteria are never going to change, regardless of my love for you.
Johan, yeah, your words are, mate, your words are outstanding. It's lifting me up, mate, and it's just refreshing to hear such words like love and beautiful times and father-son, like in a rugby culture context. So mate, it's testament to you that you're speaking that way about your boy. It's super cool.
Thanks, mate.
Just in light of that, man, just talking about cool quotes, here's another quote from you, which we'll probably sign off sometime soon here, is I heard this from you on an Instagram post, Johan. You wrote, "What a beautiful morning to wake up to, and what a privilege it is to have air in our lungs." You posted that a while back, and I thought, well, that is a lovely statement. And that, for me, that shows a whole lot about you as a man, my friend. And with that lovely quote in mind, I think we'll call it a day here, mate, because that is bang on an hour, and I don't want to take up any more of your precious time. And I appreciate you're back in South Africa now, and you're back in the homeland, the motherland. And how has it been? Like, are you looking forward to the next journey of the homecoming of sorts?
Yeah, no, I mean, Ben, I can only control, or I don't even control it. I can only, look forward to being involved with the junior box as a consultant. And, it's a great, I'm very excited, One, obviously it's nice to be back in my home country, and experience, the passionate, the supporters are here, and the culture of the rugby here. So that's great to just feel that again in the air. And then, second of all, like I said earlier, I feel coaching is a calling. There's a purpose why we coach it. And what better ground than a 19, 20-year-old kid who's on the verge of his dream. He's living. You can just think, when we were 19, 20, how much dreams we had, and how we all saw where we're going to play. But unfortunately, a lot of them now has gone has to realize it's going to take a lot of hard work. And I'm so glad I've got this small little part now to play on that journey for them. The first step to play for the under-20s, and then hopefully for their careers going forward.
Oh, well, mate, you're certainly the man to push those guys off from the shore with the best possible momentum. And I know, like, from all your environments, they will come away fizzing at the thought of playing with and around you and for you. You've got a wonderful crew, mate, and you as a coach go very well. So thank you, mate. Thank you for your time. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to catching up in the future more.
I appreciate that. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Awesome, mate.